Howdy folks, Little John. It's Friday once again in the brewery, and I'm playing around with getting the keg fridge up and going again. So getting a little bit of help from the old mates at Tickle Tennessee Whiskey, one of my faves. I know we talk of beer, but if you don't mind a bit of bourbon, you haven't tried that one, do yourself a favour. Bloody good drop. Anyway, so I said I'm putting the keg fridge back together. Well, not back together, it's a new fridge. Anyone who's regular on the channel knows my old keg fridge died a few months ago, and I've mucked around a little bit before getting it replaced, but I've got a new fridge 2 weekends ago, and I'm ready to get it all together. Not all together, but at least get it started getting some taps in there, getting it worked out. So I've got all my bits and pieces, all the fittings that come off the old keg. I've given these a really good, clean. I pulled everything apart. I pulled all the taps and everything down into bits and cleaned them. So I have to put those back together. So just go through, while I'm doing it, we might as well do a bit of a normal sort of Five on Friday, have a chat about how you go about doing things and why we wouldn't do stuff and things like that. So thought as we go, have a bit of a chat about kegging in general and what's involved, and the bits and pieces that go along with setting up your own kegs. So if anyone's out there who's thinking about getting into it, give you a bit of an idea of what you're looking at, and what you got to contend with. Now, there's a whack of stuff in here, and in all honesty, this is 6 taps worth. So there's 6 full taps in here, all broken down, and all the bits and pieces to go along with them. So before I get into putting stuff together, let's have a bit of a run through on what, well, first of all, why you want to be kegging. And this is, it's been discussed on videos before. I'm not going to go into great lengths on the reasons for kegging, but if you're getting your beer and you're getting serious about your brewing, then you find that you're spending a lot of time cleaning and filling bottles, and mucking around with priming and stuff like that, and that sort of can get a little bit tiresome for a lot of brewers. So quite often the progression up the kegs is not a difficult one to make once you sort of get over that bottling. Some people find bottling really cathartic and they enjoy it, and I don't dislike bottling, but there's a lot of time involved that you can be using differently. But for me, the real thing behind kegging the beer is, one, when you're designing a recipe, you design the recipe to finish a particular way with a certain level of colour, malt, bitterness, gas and all the rest of it. And then when you're bottling, you're adding your priming sugar, which does have an effect on that final taste. Now when you're kegging, because you just put your finished beer straight into a keg and you put it on the gas, what you're getting in the keg and coming out of the keg is exactly what you are intending to brew. There's no changes with flavour and mouthfeel and things that go along with those sugars. So that's a big factor for me in going kegs. And the second one and for want of a better term, it's a bit of the wank factor. It's nice to have your own taps at home, and whether they be on a fridge or built into a bar and on a font, or even if you're just using the old Pluto handgun or even a picnic, having beer on tap is it's nice. And I said, if you've got a good setup where you've got the taps set up for visitors and guests and stuff, it's pretty darn impressive. People will come over and you got beer on tap. It's like having the pub at home. So there's reasons for doing it. At the same time, kegging isn't for everybody. It's not a cheap exercise. It does cost a whack of money to get into kegging. You got to buy kegs. Now, normal keg, this sort of fella, 19 litre. They're commonly referred to as Cornelius kegs as a common. So, but they're basically old soda kegs. They're Coca-Cola and Pepsi kegs for the most part. So these are the kegs that pubs and restaurants and things use to store the syrup for making their post-mix Coke over the counter. Now you can also get smaller kegs, and this is what I use mostly, little 9.5 litres, so a half keg. And this is all I'll be using in my new fridge. And so they're an expense. So your big 19 litre keg, which is going to hold pretty much a full batch, will run you anywhere from $70 to $140, depending on whether you're buying second hand or brand new. You can get them a little cheaper at times, but generally you'll find the cheaper kegs need to be rebuilt, have new seals and stuff put through them. They're not costing you just as much anyway. And the little fellas, you've basically got to buy these brand new. You don't really have an option. These are very hard to find second hand because they're not used commercially. And you pay almost as much as one of those as you do for a 19 litre. So again, that's up to yourself. I like the 9.5 because I like to have a bit of variety, and because I'm not a real big drinker. It takes 2 on through a 19 litre keg. So I tend to have more of the smaller ones. Previously I had 6 kegs, and I'd have the 2 big kegs which would have the easy drinking stuff, so normally an Australian lager and just a simple pale ale or maybe a ginger beer, something like that. Stuff that visitors and guests could easily drink without a problem, and so they get drunk a little bit quicker. But when you come to beers I'm drinking for myself, pale ales and IPAs and stouts and stuff, then you want to go for I always wanted to go a smaller keg, so they didn't last for quite as long. So that's your keg. And obviously you need a dedicated fridge of some kind for kegs. Now most brewers realistically have probably got a keg that they're using for beer regardless, so that's not such a biggie. But if you are using a normal fridge, then you need to put holes and stuff in it to make it usable for kegs. So you're taking it out of commission for pretty much normal use from that point on, which is why some people go with kegerators and stuff. But that's a personal choice, and you'll see as I go along sort of what I mean about that. And you need the bits and pieces. So I'm going to get these taps and stuff out. I'm going to lay them out so I can actually get them back together a little bit easier. So I'm going to switch the camera off a bit. I'm going to get these out. I'll put the camera back on when I'm doing that, and we'll have a bit of a look at the actual parts involved, and a bit more of a look at how we'll put these bits and pieces together. Okay, so this is all the parts that are involved in the keg. Well, not so much the keg necessarily, but the tap. So there's all the bits. This is one full tap set up there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 individual pieces. Now, that freaks some people out because there's so many pieces, but it's all fairly easy to muck around with. Now, these taps are cheap. These were about 30 bucks each. I bought them off eBay from I think 2 different suppliers in the end. So they aren't high quality. You can spend a bit extra money, and certainly if you've got the money to spend it. You can get Intertap, which are a decent brand without spending a lot of money, and they're very much the same design as these taps, but they're just made with they're just a better quality. But you can step up to things like Perlick, which are a very good tap, Andale, and there's a few others. I'm not going to go through all the different kinds. I mean, you can do that research for yourself, but we need to put this tap together. So to get it into our fridge, we can't put the whole thing together in one go, but we can partly assemble it. So we start with just the tap body, and obviously it's where your beer comes out, and this is where it attaches to your fridge. So now I don't know the technical name for all these bits and pieces, so we'll call it this part here. And this just goes into yay, and operates your mechanism. Now, probably should have put it in first. That is what opens and closes the tap. So it slides in, and it's a little tap, it sits in there. So when you move it, this one moves backwards and forwards. So it goes in, you need to get it lined up straight. It goes in nice and easy, and that fella slides into it, and it just sits in there, and you can, well, it's going to show up, but when you move it, the plunger on the inside goes in and out, and as it goes forward it seals, and you open and lets beer flow. So closed, open, beer flow, close it, and she stops the flow. And you have a little collar, sits over there, screws down and holds that in place. And that one doesn't screw down super tight. You go too tight and your restriction movement through your tap. So that one you can play around with that one a little bit once you got your actual setup in. And then you can attach your tap to this piece, which goes on a little bit, looks like a top hat. So it's just a riser. It screws down on your post, and then your tap handle, which can be any kind you like. These are just a basic, plastic resin, and that just screws on the top, and there's your tap. Open, closed. Fairly simple. Now, to attach that to your actual fridge or a font, you need a shank. Now this is a long shank, it's about 10 centimeters long, and this is designed to go through fridge doors, so it needs to be longer. If you're going into a font, it will generally only be about that long, because it just needs to go inside and then attach. So this attaches like yay. Now missing my collar, here it is. 16 pieces, not 15, sorry, missed one. So now here taps can come with a spring or without a spring, so they can be self-closing, and that's a personal preference. I've got a couple of, when I had the 6 taps, I had 4 that were self-closing and 2 that weren't. they're not a bad idea, especially if you've got bloody kids or you're having a lot of visitors around who might open the tap and then leave, not close it properly. Because if you pull that tap forward, it just stays open, and if you push it back and it's not all the way back, it can slowly leak, and the pressure can force it to open. So you've got to push it back manually. So having the spring on there can do that for you. So that spring sits against the back of your bar and then sits into your shank, and then the whole thing compresses together when you attach it. So to attach that shank, you have that collar, and it slides just over your shank, and your tap goes onto that, and it screws together. Now I'm going to leave that apart because you leave that off while you're putting it actually into the fridge. And then your taps will have some sort of decorative collar which just sits behind that with a rubber spacer. And so when you're looking at your fridge, you've got a nice clean finish there. That's just the same as your architrave on a door or at home, just cleaning up any nastiness behind it, so it's nice and neat. We'll leave them out till we get them in the fridge. Then you have your nuts at the back, so this attaches at the back, just with a simple screw on. Again, you have another washer, and your screw, and that will screw into the back of your, whatever it is, your fridge wall, and hold your shank nice and tight so it doesn't move around. And then you have a little tail piece which goes on the back of that, which goes on here, which is where your actual hose will attach to get your beer to your tap. And that's just a simple washer, another little hose connection, and it just sits in together, and that just screws on the end, and that holds your tail in place. So you have your tail through the door, tap on the front, and your hose runs off to your keg. So it's fairly simple. They can only really go together one way, and if you don't put together right, it leaks like a bastard. You know you got something wrong, and you start again. It's not like a car. If you rebuild, you know, if you've got a screw left at the end, you're going to have a problem. So then that, you've got to get that to your keg. Okay, so to get from your shank to your keg, you need some tubing, commonly referred to as beer line. Bar line, it just depends. And that attaches to here, and that runs off, attaches to one of these fellas at the other end. Now that's referred to as a disconnect. It's a ball lock disconnect. It's designed to go onto a ball lock keg. Instead of these little fellas, I don't know how it's going to show up. You have posts on here, and those posts, they're called a ball lock because you've got balls in there which lock onto the post, and they just push on, squeeze, push them down, and they're on, and they seal, and you squeeze them back off to get them off. Ball lock. My two big kegs have what's called a pin lock, where there's actual pins on the post, and the ball lock sits down and twists onto it. Not going to go into those, and they're getting hard to come by, and you really want to avoid them if you're going down the kegging path. Now, you've got this, you've got your tap, you sorted that. You got to get your beer line. Now, beer line comes in various sizes, and depending on what beer size line you use, depends on how much of it you're going to need as well. So you need to sort of have a bit of a look at that. you can get, I said, you get the two general sizes you're going to use for beer are a 4mm internal diameter and a 5mm internal diameter. And generally they'll be an 8mm external diameter. So you'll see 4ID or 5ID / 8 OD. Alright, and that's just your internal dimension and your external. Okay. Now, most of these tailpipes and connections and stuff are 5mm. So if you're using 5m hose, they go in a little bit easier. Now this, actually there might even be 6mm on there, but either way. And it goes in the end. So that one goes in reasonably easy, but you need them to seal pretty well. So on my old system I had 4mm line, and it was an absolute pain in the backside to get this onto these. And as you, like just that tailpipe, it's quite smaller compared to that one. So you're going to have a different problem with getting that on. So, and the same with splitters, they're a different size. So this time I've decided to go for 5mm just to make it a little bit easier on myself, especially with getting onto these thicker sort of connections. Now, the diameter of the line will depend on how long it needs to be. I mean, there's a few factors involved, but the basic reality is the internal diameter of your beer line dictates how long the line needs to be. There is factors like the height of the tap above the keg and whatnot, but simply length is your main thing you're looking at. So you can go online, you can find calculators, search for beer line calculator, beer line length calculator, and they will give you an idea of fairly closely how much length of line you will need depending on the internal diameter and the pressure that you're generally going to serve at. Now, line serves two purposes. One, it gets your beer from the keg to the tap, but the second and most important function is it creates resistance of the beer flow. Without resistance, you get a lot of frothing in your beer. So if you're not using the right length and the right diameter, you don't get the right flow, and you'll have all sorts of trouble getting a good pour out of your beer. You see guys all the time having all sorts of trouble with foamy beer from their keg, and it's generally because their line length is not correct. Okay, so you've got to look into that when you're going. So I'm using 5mm on the connections today. So that runs from the tap to your disconnect onto your keg. Beautiful. You got gear side sorted. Got the beer side sorted. Then you have your actual, what you're going to dispense with, and that's gas, CO2. You can use nitrogen. You can get a CO2 nitrogen mix. Depends on what you want to do. Most pubs, like you get beer gas or beer mix, is a combination. I think it's generally about 70% CO2, 30% nitrogen. And it gives the beer a creamier sort of feel, tighter gas bubbles, and a thicker, denser head. And it's been used commercially for a long time because it just presents a little bit nicer than straight CO2. For the home brew, up until reasonably recently, going for nitrogen just wasn't really an option. It was quite difficult, but it's becoming more readily available, and it is easier, and a lot more brewers are doing it, especially with their stouts, hooking up specialty nitrogen taps to pour stouts so they're nice and creamy and all the rest of it. Sort of, you can get that Guinness effect, fix that slow pour where the head slowly comes up. That's nitrogen. Nitrogen's a much heavier gas than CO2, so it comes out of solution much slower and creates that different effect. But we're just working on CO2. So that then becomes on the other side of your keg where you had your two posts, beer on one side, you've now got gas on, you've got your gas post on the other. And they're always different. B for black, beer. B, black, beer. Grey, gas. Easy. You've got to be careful on the post you get keg, you get these on the right side because they are slightly different, and I'm not going to go into that right now, but just be aware of it if you're doing it. So this fella also needs line. So you attach your gas line to your disconnect, and it runs off to your gas bottle, and that disconnect sits on your keg. Okay, and you set your gas bottle whatever you want. Now you've got to get that gas then from that bottle back to your keg. Now if you've only got one keg, it's simple. That's just a gas line from the from your gas bottle to a disconnect on your keg. Simple. You do need one of these fellas, a one-way valve, a check valve, non-return valve, depends where you're getting from exactly what they're called, but that goes on your gas line. So gas goes this way and you can't get liquid back out of your keg coming this way. If you depressurise your keg, you depressurise your gas bottle at this end, the pressure from the keg can drive gas back up the line and into your regulator, which will fuck it. So they're about a $25 item, and they're worth every cent. Make sure you've got one of them on your gas line. Now this bit of gear here is just getting a little bit fancier. So if you've got more than one keg, you need to split that gas line if you haven't got two regulators, which I don't. I'd like to have two separate regulators, but that's a different issue. So there's a couple of ways you can do it. One, and the simplest way, is just to use a splitter. That's a T-splitter. You can get U-shaped or whatever, but basically that will take your gas line coming out of your keg into one end, and you can split it into two. So you can run two kegs off that. So you have your line running off to a disconnect on both ends, and you've got two kegs running. Of course, if you then step that up and put another one in the mix, you can run two kegs there, and you've got three, and so on. Or if you want a little bit more control, then you can go for this little bit of gear. Now this is called a gas manifold. It's pretty original, isn't it? Yeah. Now these come in various. You can get 2, 3, 4, 6. I don't know if you can get more than 6. You probably can if you went to a sort of more commercial sort of adventure. But on the home brews, generally 2, 3, 4, and 6 is what you're looking at. And you can piggyback these. You can take the end out, put another one on to make more of them. And these are tap driven. They've got a tap for turning each individual one on off. So you can run 4 straight off that pretty easy. Gas line in, single line off that to your disconnect onto a keg, and you can do that 4 times. Or like I did with my last setup, you can run a splitter off those lines, and you can then run 2 kegs or even 3 kegs off each of these taps. Because it doesn't matter how many you got off here, because your pressure runs back to your keg, and it neutralises over every keg. So it doesn't matter how many you've got, each one will run the same amount of pressure. So you can run multiples off that. So how I ran this on my last one was I had the 3 taps, and each one was split 2 ways, so I could have me 6 kegs off that. I then had an extra line coming off this tap, which didn't actually go to a keg, but it was ready, and I could use it for priming and purging kegs on bottling day. And again, that's something you need to look into. If you get into kegging, that's something you can look at. It's not necessary to have a spare one. You can just take one off a keg, but just made life a bit easier for me with my setup. It was simpler. Now, I'm not going to run that manifold on the setup today. Looking at this fridge, and I think I might have mentioned in the previous video from last week, I had looked, I was thinking I was going to run 5 kegs. But to run 5 kegs, I need to build a shelf into this new fridge to take the 5 kegs, and I can sit 2 or 3 in front of it. So I could get 6 kegs into the fridge if I wanted to. But running at the moment the plan is I'm going to run 3, and what that means is I've got 3 kegs in the bottom of the fridge and I've got 2 shelves above. So I can carry 3 kegs, and at the moment about 90 bottles of beer on 2 shelves and about another dozen and a half in the doors. So I'm thinking I'm going to run that way at the moment and just see how I go. If it comes to it, I can rearrange and I can add that shelf in later and fiddle around a little bit. So today I'm just going to go straight from the gas bottle with a couple of splitters. I'll split twice and I'll just run that into 3 lines, and that'll be it. Nice and simple. Down the track I can adjust that if I need to. So that's the run through. So I'm going to actually I'm going to go and have myself some lunch. Then I'm going to come back. I'm going to get taps into the door and get these lines hooked up. So we'll come back and have a bit of a look at that. Okay, so I've worked out where the taps are going, and I've cut the holes. Now they're off centered because there's a weird unbalanced shelf there at the front of the fridge, and I want to leave these door shelves alone. Now kegs are going to go down there. There's already one sitting there ready to go, and I'll sit on the bottom, and that leaves me these 2 shelves which will hold me a good whack of beers. So therefore that's where the taps are going, and if I down the track decide I want to put some more in, I can drop them into there, which will then fill this side. But for now I'm happy with that, so I'll get the taps put in there and we'll have a look at it. Okay, so we've got our shanks ready to go in. So take the shank, put our collar over the top, ready to take the tap. Our decorative little bit and washer on there, and that goes straight in the hole. We'll do that with all 3. One, 2, 3, and they're in, and just we'll stick our washer and nut on the back and lock them into place. Alright, they're in. So we'll leave that and we'll get our lines sorted. Okay, so taps are mounted into the door of the fridge. We're progressing along. Time for a bit of a drink. And the Bridge Road Nitro Mountain Lager. I've seen a bit of talking about this one. I think I was meant to do something with this can before I actually opened it. Oh, I was meant to shake it 4 times. Well, too late for that. Invert and shake. So I've probably just ruined some of the effect. But yeah, look at that. Got a bit of wankerism going on. That's all good on a Friday afternoon. Pretty dark for a lager. Anyway, so time to get the taps connected to some line. Now I've just done a check on a beer line calculator. Quick one was American one. It was just on me phone. I prefer to do stuff on the computer, but I'm a bit old school that way. But you know, round one was American. Everything was in feet, but luckily tape measure those feet on one side. So and calculating all that out, it tells me that I need about, it's saying 2.95 metres of beer line at 5 millimetres, or with 1.8 or 3/16 of an inch. So close enough. So I was planning on going about 3.5 and then cutting back from there, because 3.5 sort of thrown around as the sort of good starting point for 5 mil line. So given I've got a bloody big length here, it doesn't unroll nice and easy, but without actually going the tape measure, I know I'm 1.65, so I reckon if I go 2 of me, that's going to give me about, it's about 12 fucking metres. No, it's about 3 metres, give or take, maybe 3.2, and we'll leave it. We'll go with that. And go just a fraction longer. Now it's obviously easier to adjust and trim back downwards than it is to add on, so you're better off erring on the side of caution. If you need to play around and trim it a little bit at some point, and that's not going to really matter. Now, as I said, these hoses can get a little bit tricky to get onto these barbs, and you need to get them on nice and tight because obviously you don't want to leak. And it's more important on the gas side really than the beer side, because beer side, you know, you're going to lose liquid. It's going to be pretty obvious, and you can fix it pretty quickly. If you get a leak on your gas side, you're not going to see it, you're not going to know about it until your gas bottle's empty. And running out of gas, you know, it's not convenient, it's not cheap, and if you run out and you haven't got a backup, it leaves you without any way of serving beer. Now, you want to avoid. So we want to make sure everything's nice and secured. So, best way to do that, boiling water. End of your beer line in there. Now, you need about 30 seconds to doing this, so I've always found the best way of waiting for that to happen, to have a beer. Oh yeah, that's fucking terrible. Really? Yep. Fuck me, I'd be fucking upset if I brewed that. I'm sorry, brewers. Sorry, bloody Bridge Road. I'm a fan of some of your beers, but definitely not that one. That's fucking terrible. I can't recommend that one. So let this soften up a bit. Make sure you pop a clamp on there, ready to go, and then try and work your line onto your post. Now this can be a very, very frustrating experience, but once you get on there, you're away. And as I say, this is why you want it in your boiling water. And yeah, that's good. That's just what I fucking need. Are you kidding me? And this is the sort of thing you need to avoid. Just put a kink in that, which means that will just cause a massive amount of turbulence on the brew going past that, so that's not good. Now I have some of this so to stick bloody the old long nose pliers in these things and stretch them. Okay, and that does seem to work. So hose in the water. Now this hose I'm using, this is from Keggland. I've not used this before, so I don't know how good it is. Last one I used was Barfeld, which I actually got lucky enough to pick up at Masters in Wagga before they shut down. And it was bloody really easy to work with. This seems to be alright. We'll see how we go. So the old trick, stick the long nose pliers in the end of your hose and use them to stretch it a little bit. Because you don't want to do too much damage to the actual hose itself. You want to keep it kink free. So getting a kink in there while you're doing this is not going to get you anywhere. As I said, this can be frustrating. So the main thing you're trying to do is avoid kinking that hose. Keeping it nice and soft helps it to work. So you just need to be patient. Take your time. Now, if you're only doing one tap, then yeah, it's not a real problem, is it? If you're knocking out a few to go, it can become just a tad more annoying, but yeah, just work with it. So just be nice and gentle. And there we go, he's on all the way to the end. And then just to make sure, roll the clamp on there. Now, screwdriver. Now, I did buy some stepless clamps when I got the gear for this, but I didn't grab. They sell a special tool for putting them on. It's just a pair of pincers, but I didn't get one. I was thinking, no, they wanted bloody, I don't know, it was $7 or $8 or something for it. I thought, stuff that. I'll just go down the bloody cheapo shop and buy a pair for $2. Yeah, and I forgot about doing that, didn't I? So I've still got just normal clamps here I used on the last set, so they'll do the job. So pinch them on, nice and firm. Righto. So there's our disconnect on, which goes to our keg. And then we need our other end onto our tail, which now this is going to be a bit more of an exercise than the other end. So I've learned from experience that non-boiling water very quickly stops doing the job effectively. So we'll reboil it. So I'll put these, I'll get these together, and we'll come back and have a look as we attach them onto the taps and get it onto the keg. I might even get some of the gas, might even get the gas done while I'm going. Okay, so just putting the taps in. So taps together, spring just sits inside, fat end in first. It doesn't matter if they're a long one or a skinny one. Or yeah, shorter spring. I've got some longer ones and shorter ones. Doesn't matter, they're both worth the same. They sit in there, there's a little ridge in the shank, and you just push the tap on and tighten up the collar, which you just do by hand, and there's a special tool we use to finish that off. And I'll do that with the next one, and they're set to go, and then we can get the lines onto them. Okay, and we've got the beer line, so disconnect on one end and our tail on the other, which will just go straight onto the back of the tap. I've done 2 of those. Now I was planning on going onto these larger tails, and they're just giving me grief like bloody. So I spat the dummy. No, I didn't spit the dummy, but I knew I had the 2 smaller ones there, so I've gone for the 2. I've only got 1 keg with beer in it at the moment. I've got a bunch of kegs with beer in it, but I'm going to empty them. I'm not going to put them on tap. Not real pleased with any of those beers, but I've got the 1 beer in here which will go on tap very soon. Second keg will be probably Sunday. It's in the fridge at the moment, it's just cold crashing. It will get kegged on Sunday. That's the Oktoberfest Marzen, the coffee smoked. So that'll be the 2, and there won't be a beer going, another keg going on for another couple of weeks because I've got to actually brew again. So I'm going to order myself another one of these smaller tailpipes. And not worry about these big buggers. Wasn't worth the mucking around. So right now, so I've just got to get this gas bottle sorted out. I'll get it connected, get it on, and we'll come back. I'll get this all hooked onto the keg and hopefully pour a beer. Our gas lines are in. 1, 2, and number 3. So he's on. Now it runs around out the door and around the side, and got the gas tucked away around the side here, so we'll get him on. About 12 pounds. And that's about him there. So we're going to hook up beer line and we should be pouring. Okay, so beer line, in there. Make sure that's nice and tight. Now, it helps to hold the tap at the front. Down line. Now, I'll just loop this a bit so it tucks out of the way nicely. Should be good there. Pop that under our keg. Well, we've got some beer come up into the line, so that's a good sign. So, tuck it in behind there for a moment. I'll come back shortly and I'll tidy that up a little bit, but it's just for testing now. And shut. And go to the tap. We're going to get a glass or two. You'll get a bit of muck the first pour or so. But we pour it, that's a good sign. And there seems to be beer there, so that's a good sign as well. First pour is always a bit mucky. We'll just pull this one off altogether. So, that looked alright. Let's pour a proper one. Okay, it's not as foamy now, but that's the beer hasn't been sitting on gases yet. So, righto. So, kegs hooked up, gas, pouring. That first one actually looks a lot nicer. There's a bit of foam from the, obviously the turbulence to the first pour as the beer come up to the end of the lines. And as I said, this hasn't been on gas, it's only been on the, it's only been sitting with a little bit of malt in the keg, just so it had a bit of protection while it was waiting to get set up. So, checking. When this was actually bottled. That's a good question. When was it done? 21st of July. It was keg. So it's only been sort of 11 days. So it's not even 2 weeks. Probably 2 weeks on Sunday. So not particularly aged well. So it'll soak up some gas now, and I probably won't really drink too much of this till next weekend. But we might as well have a quick taster while we're here. And it's tasting pretty good. I'm looking forward to see that taste in another week or so. But actually I'm going to Wollongong next weekend, so there'll be no brewing or anything next Friday, so I might have to knock out something on Thursday night. But there it is, keg set up. That's the process. Obviously, I said if you're putting it into a fridge, it's fairly similar. If you're going onto a font, just you're into a font and set it through the door of the fridge. You've still got to connect everything just the same, and and that's what you end up with. Beer blowing off taps in your own house. It's a beautiful thing. So, as always, if you've got any questions, if there's anything you want to clarify, what you need, parts and stuff like that, stick them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them. If you haven't subscribed to Little John so far, subscribe down there. Come along. learn all the things you need to know about making beer, serving your beer, and a bit of bullshit along the way. But that's me for the day. Little John and the return of the kegs. Beer on tap is back. I'm a happy man. Hope you all have a good weekend. So until I see you again, we're brewing beer, we're talking beer, or we're drinking beer. Good brewing.